Hi everyone! In this video, I'll be talking about the recommendations and tips for traveling to South Korea. If you're new to my channel, you might not know, but I used to live in Korea when I was 10 till 12 years old. So for me, it was very interesting to compare how it was then and now. In my previous video, I showed you my adventures of how it was, so I thought it would be nice to share with you my actual experiences and things that I learned while I was there. I'll start off by talking about when we arrived in Incheon Airport, where we made a little bit of a mistake with the eSIM. Now we had two different options. One was a 30-day package with unlimited data, and the other was a 15-day package with 4 gigabytes of data per day. Now since we were there for only 2 weeks, we thought that 4 gigs was more than enough per day, so we decided to go with the company called Saely. And the other option was at the airport itself. So with this package, we did learn that the internet was quite slow, so slow that sometimes we would be waiting for quite a while for everything to load on Google Maps, such as the images, so we couldn't really fully use it to our preference. So next time, if I could do it again, I would definitely go with the unlimited data 30-day package. Once we got our eSIM, we decided to exchange a little bit of cash, as we have read that having cash in Korea is very handy. So we exchanged the rest over of our Taiwanese dollars into Korean won. We also read that the exchange rates are better outside of the airport, so once we were in the city, we exchanged the rest of our euros of what we thought was necessary. Now I exchanged about 850 euros in cash, and I ended up only spending around 680 euros from that, but the total for 2 weeks, including the stays, the food, and also the leisure activities, was around 1,000 euros. I did read online that Seoul was quite expensive for food, so I kept that in mind and gave myself a budget with a bit of overestimation, so in the end my budget was below that, which made me really happy. We spent 1 week in Seoul, and after that 4 nights in Busan and another 4 in Andong. Andong is a midpoint, not exactly midpoint, but it's kind of a midpoint between Seoul and Busan, so we traveled by bus to each location. When I was a child in Korea, I remember the seasons being really beautiful, such as the winter being full of snow, the spring full of flowers, summer was very hot, and autumn was beautiful colors in the forest. Now I was really happy because we went in the month of October, at the end of October till the beginning of November, and this is the time when the colors are changing. And it was amazing weather, I would say. We got so much sun. In the day it was nice and warm. In the night it could get a little bit chilly. I think the average is around 7 degrees to 19 degrees. So it does fluctuate quite a bit. I would definitely recommend to bring a nice jacket with you or something to keep you warm if you're going out in the evening. Now I'll be talking about the food. You may know that Korean food is quite a popular cuisine, as it is very delicious. So from my impression of going this time, I would say that I was surprised to find that there was a lot of meat quantity and less vegetables than I would have thought. I would say that they do have a balanced diet. So for example, there are a lot of fermented and pickled, excuse me, it's a bit of children outside. So there are fermented and pickled vegetables, and they do have a lot of rice and kimchi too, of course. So if you're not used to spicy food, I would recommend to try a little bit first, but it's not the most spicy food that you'll ever have. Some of my favorite foods were kimbap, jjajangmyeon, of course, Korean barbecue was very nice, or bibimbap. Now for breakfast, I usually had some kimbap with some nice warm soup, and dinner would be more like jjajangmyeon. But generally, I did find that Koreans don't have a big breakfast culture, not like Europe, for example. So they do generally eat similar things throughout the day, maybe a little bit of a later breakfast, of course. I noticed that a lot of the cafes open around from 9, 10, or even 11. It was really interesting to also see that in the supermarkets, the vegetables and the fruits were actually pretty expensive. For example, more the fruits. I asked my friend who lives there about this, and he said that yes, it is common for fruits to be more expensive, so people don't eat them as much. When you go to a restaurant, you can also see that from the menu, there are a lot of things you might need to use Google Translate for, but you might need to do another step forward, which is to Google what the dish actually is, because there isn't really much of a description for it. So if you're not familiar with those dishes, it's good to learn a couple of them. The public transportation system in Korea is quite good, with a majority of having bus and a metro system. Now, it's very handy to get yourself a T-Money card when you first arrive on your trip. I got my first one at the airport. You can also buy them at the train stations or a convenience store as well, where you can also top them up, which is very beneficial. Now, you only need to fill it with some money, and then you can use it in buses or metros anywhere you go. Unfortunately, on my trip, I did lose my card 2 times, which is a little bit silly, but I must have taken my phone out of my pocket and it must have just fallen out with it. So I decided to get one of these from Daiso, which is a really handy thing. You can put it on your backpack or a keychain, and it's on the go. You can just tap your card and then have it hanging there. So something you need for people like me. Using the bus was very easy to get around, as you just have a number or maybe some characters, but the metro system was a little bit more tricky for those who don't speak Korean. For example, when you're trying to look for the direction that you go into, it might say the name of the next station of the direction instead of the last stop, for example. So if you're lost, you can always ask somebody around you or maybe somebody that works at the station. Going back to Korea and meeting Korean people really helped me distinguish my memory of the difference of Korean and Japanese people, for example. I really found that Korean people were very outspoken about their opinions, which I find to be quite a healthy thing, at least within East Asia. And I also noticed that being more visibly tattooed, there were a lot of people who would maybe stare a little bit more, as I learned that there's a lot of Christians in the country as well. Generally, the friends that I met there were really outgoing and laid back, so I was happy to be able to meet some locals. My favorite place that I visited in South Korea would by far be Andong. The scenery there was absolutely stunning. The food was also really delicious. For example, the salted mackerel or jimdak, which is a dish with glass noodles and chicken. So if you're looking for a little bit more quiet and nature and to learn about Korean culture, I highly recommend it. Seoul was definitely more of a metropolitan business kind of city, and Busan was a perfect mix between Seoul and Andong, with having a lot of nature such as the beach and the mountains within the city, and being more modern. If you've ever been to South Korea and you would like to share your experiences, or if you have any questions about it, please feel free to let me know in the comments. The next trip we're gonna be taking is to Japan for a month, so I'm really excited to share with you my journey there. I'll probably split it up into 2 different videos, as we'll be traveling for around a month and a half, which is quite long. So tune into my next video. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll see you next time. Bye!